I'm Commander Shepard, and the Unnamed Games podcast is my favorite podcast on the Citadel. Shepard out.
Hello, people of the internet. I cut that music off dead sharp then. I do apologise.
That's all look like idiots. Like, we're all grieving at work, and then you're like, no.
I totally pressed the wrong button. I'm out of practice.
You know what? Cut. Let's go again.
Has a week off and ruins the intro. I mean, what?
What can you do? Absolute amateur hour. I think, Phil, you're going to have to take the reins from now on, mate, because clearly you're far better at it than I am. Anyway, welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Unnamed Games podcast. This week I have with me, as you can see, Mr. Phil and Mr. Speed Freak Phil. How are you, sir?
Ahoy, hoy, people of the internet. Just to be clear, that sounds an awful lot of work having to host every week. So you may remain in the chair of power until you so desire a week off, and I shall step in for the 1 in 4 that you take off. That's
Thank you very much, mate.
really about the limit of what I'm willing to commit. It's good fun hosting, but it is a hard work.
It's a
For
pain
those
in
of
the
you
butt,
out there
but
that
we
don't
love
ever
it.
do a podcast.
And also, we have the man, the legend, Mr. Ratster Tweets. How are you, sir?
The man, the legend. Wow. Legend, you say? Wow, that's a billing to live up to, isn't it? You know? It
really is.
Mate. I'm all right. I'm just having a bit of a chill, you know. It's been a hot day, and I've just been like, whoa. You know, thank God we're recording this late, because I would have melted if we'd have tried to do this.
I am
in
still
the day.
sweating a lot.
I'll be honest, I'm also sweating, but that's for an entirely different reason. I had my second COVID jab and it's kicked my ass. So I feel like I've got the flu, but I haven't, because it's just COVID. Or maybe it is.
Oh, mate.
I highly recommend getting a COVID jab, because, you know, getting COVID is so much worse than feeling ill for a couple of days and never getting it. But it's an unpleasant experience, you know.
Yeah, been
Spoilers.
there, my friend. But yeah, spoiler alert, yeah. Anyway, right, so this week we're going to go through the usual. We'll find out what people have been up to, and then we're going to go through some news, and then we've got a talking point this week. No quiz, I'm afraid, but hopefully we can get into the juice of this talking point. So I am going to go first all the way around to the man, the legend, Mr. Ratster Tweets. What have you been up to?
I can't deal with this billing of the legend. It's just too much, man. It's just too much.
It's too much to live up to.
Yeah, too much of something. I have been having a fairly chill week. I've been doing some job hunting, which is kind of my life at the minute. Played a few games here and there, done a fair chunk of painting, including starting some serious work on Liara. Her face head piece took me a long time.
She's looking quality, mate.
If I never see another dot again, it'll be too soon after doing her whole head. It's just ridiculous. So I've been doing a lot of that, listening to a lot of music, because obviously when you're painting, it's a really good way to just focus in, get your Zen on, stick your cans on. I got my new music headphones this week. They're nice. So I was just been enjoying those while painting away. And I've been having a really good time with that.
Are those the ludicrously expensive ones that you got a good deal on?
Okay.
I use that in inverted commas because for the rest of us it's expensive.
I got a good deal on these, but they're still expensive, let's put it that way. But it was a very good deal on them for what they are. But yeah, they weren't cheap in any way, shape, or form. But let's just move swiftly on, Phil.
You notice how he puts expensive headphones and job hunting into the same conversation.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
It's in his Zen moment when he's clicking them links.
It's like, I will be able to pay for it. So I've just been doing that. Watched a bit of Netflix. You're sometimes in a YouTube hole and something will come along and you'll go, "Ooh," and it'll be like a clip from a show. It was a clip from Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I was like, I could watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. And then the next thing I know, I'm rewatching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Like 3 seasons deep or something.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, I've been a bit more choosy. Like, I've skipped the episodes I don't enjoy quite so much. Like, I've seen this enough times to skip that. But I watched Darmok today, which, if you know that one, Darmok and Jihad at Tanagra, you know, that stuff. I love that episode, and it was really cool to watch. I watched that today. I also,
funny enough, actually, just on the note of Star Trek, I have started watching back into a bit of Enterprise again, because I was watching a bit.
That wonderful theme tune.
Oh, mate, it was the theme tune that stopped me, I think, and I was like, no, I just go la 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 la, skip intro.
Getting from there to here.
Right, the kick fell out of the room.
On the same point, though, not only did you then start watching Enterprise, we then tried to play Star Trek Online as well, didn't we? And failed miserably because neither of us could remember how to play it. I had like a max level character, like brilliant, annihilate everything in front of me. Don't know how to make the ship move forward though.
Yeah. Anyway, but I'm loving a bit of Enterprise, and I was just wanted to say I've got into season 2, and the whole. I know this isn't a spoiler because they talk about it like in the first episode. I think the whole kind of temporal Cold War as that's starting to open up, which is exciting. So I'm well stuck into that.
That stuff is really well written.
Season
and
2
enjoyable
really
to watch.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Enterprise as a whole is really good. It doesn't quite find its stride until like we discussed before, like series 3, 4 is where it really gets going, like all Star Trek does, and then it got binned off, which is the shame of it. But I think as a series of Star Trek go, it opens stronger than most series. Like the first 2 seasons of Enterprise, I would probably say are better than the first 2 seasons of Next Generation.
I would agree.
Here and there. Like, I mean, you have got like a few things that show up in Next Generation, the first 2 seasons, which are particular standout episodes. But Enterprise as a whole has a more coherent storyline. I think it's because at that point Trek had moved into that, from the Deep Space Nine era, had moved into that and Voyager, that whole linear storyline. So you had a story to tell, and that also really suited Enterprise's setting and what it was doing. So I think that really worked for them in that respect. So I got a lot of time for it. Yeah,
even though you had that episode of the week, it was kind of, it's still got that overarching story, hasn't it? That is very prevalent. It's going somewhere.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
It's one of those things where you just it might only be a moment here or there in an episode that links it to the rest of the bigger theme, but it does it, So there was that, and you completely throw me off now. I was going to say something else I've been doing, Craig, and you've completely. Oh, that was it. I have gone back to and started playing for the first time in I don't know how many years. Psychonauts, the OG Psychonauts. In fact, I only started today because as you guys know, I got my gigabit broadband installed, and it changes your world completely because you could just go, I'm going to play that game and download it, and I literally just went right. The dashboard today just said play Psychonauts now, and I was like, all right, I will. Click. 5 minutes later, I was playing Psychonauts, and I was like, I love this. It's so good. It was only like a 5.8 gig download. But yeah, it was
broadband envy strikes again.
That's go on.
What was my broadband last week when we were trying to record? 17, I believe it had dropped down to.
That was just my life though for forever. You complain like it's a down. That was your worst possible scenario. That was my absolute best possible scenario for me 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But it's the upload that I've really noticed though, because I've been playing some more Mass Effect as well. That's something I wasn't going to linger on, but I'm doing a Renegade run with Femshep. I've never done a full Renegade run before, and some of that's hilarious. Like I've never quite gone full Renegade, and some of the stuff you can do is genuinely hilarious. And it's so satisfying as well, because there are some characters you meet as a Paragon, and you're just like, I'm just going to be nice to you because I kind of got to be, because I'm biting my tongue because that's what my character would do. But there's like a guy on Mass Effect 1, when you get back from your first visit away from the Citadel, you do the first mission, you go back, and he's waiting at the docks to interrogate you and wants to inspect the ship. And I basically went, no, do one. I was just like, oh, that was so satisfying. To tell him to just do one. You're not going on my ship, mate. Get out of it.
And the one I always enjoy from the Renegade is the news reporter. Is it Alina Al-Jalani? And then she asks you a question, and then it just pops up, and you can lamp her in the face.
I did that. On the polar opposite of that, like every time I would do a Paragon run through on all 3 games, because I just can't play it in any other way. However, there was one scene in Mass Effect 2, you'll remember the scene where there's a guy, he's a merc standing at the top of a building, and he gives you the option to boot him off. Every time, no matter if I was playing Renegade or not, Paragon or not, I would just boot him straight off there, because it was just so juicy. But this time round, I managed to resist and not do it, and I didn't feel good afterwards. I was like, he so should have gone off the side of that building.
There's a couple of moments like that, but been doing that. But what I noticed, to go back to the broadband thing, is I've been taking screenshots from Mass Effect 3 as well, just in and out to collect references for painting Liara. And previously I'd have gone, right, I'm going to take a screenshot, and then I would have had to make sure I wasn't playing an online game, because if I was, forget it, I couldn't do anything. Now my concern is, I've taken a screenshot, I'll wait for it to upload. Oh, it's uploaded. It's like it's just done. like I don't have any waiting. It's just like, oh, it's already up. Okay, cool, no worries. So I can like grab a reference for Liara instantly, play the game, whatever. It's great. I'm loving gigabit broadband. I've got to say, because I get currently my best speeds I've recorded are 965, I think, down and 790 up. And I'm just like, yeah,
amazing. Also, on the Amazeballs front, the screenshot mode in that Mass Effect Legendary Edition is so good and comprehensive. Like, that must be amazing for taking the reference shots and stuff.
Yeah, it's really useful. I mean, like the only annoying thing about it is there's no way to get into photo mode during cutscenes. So where there is some really, you go, oh, I really do like that shot. You're like, I'm being really fussy because I want these things. You can't do it, which is kind of annoying, but that's a minor gripe. But other than that, like the fact you can remove the NPCs, remove the player, change the depth, it's a phenomenally good photo mode, to be fair. Credit where credit is due. It's really, really good. But yeah, and the only thing I was like, Psychonauts, obviously been playing that. What I was going to say on Psychonauts is I'm really, really impressed by how good it still looks. Now, I know that's because the Series X is doing all its magic to make it look better. But, you know, it probably helped because of the art style of the game. It's not supposed to look super realistic. But because of all that voodoo that the Xbox does to upscale it and make it more modern, that looks really, really good, and it plays really, really well. I've got to say, like, I'm enjoying it again. I've forgotten how good the sense of humor. It's typical Tim Schafer. It's got a really good sense of humor, and kind of a slightly Monty Python-esque vibe to the humor in it. You know, and I've been really enjoying it. I'm not far into it. I've only played a couple of hours, but yeah, I really, really like it. It's sort of pumped me up for Psychonauts 2 coming along as well, for sure. You know, like it looks, you know, that just looks like a bigger, better version of Psychonauts. So yeah, I'm down for a bit of that. That's all fun and games. And I'm sure there was something else, but as usual, I've completely forgotten what it is. So it doesn't matter too much. And I ain't going to go on for hours. I think I've covered what I've done this week fairly comprehensively. So over to whoever is next, sir.
Lovely, thank you. And the speediest of us all, Mr. Speed Freak Phil. What have you been up to, mate?
Probably not the most complimentary comment, but sure, it's my own fault. It's my game
it depends on what reference you're talking, I suppose.
That is true. Running from the police, probably beneficial, I imagine. Yes.
Why would you need to be running from the police, Phil? You know,
I don't know. I wouldn't be.
Just why would you? I'm confused here. Why would that be the
Grand
first
Theft
thing?
Auto? Yes,
why would that be the first thing that comes to your head when someone says, you know, you're like, yeah, if I need to run from the police? It's like guilty conscience or what right there, I feel, you know.
Well, because I think anything else would dig me a sufficiently deeper hole than that. So let's go with that. Anyway, moving on from potential outcomes. You said, what have I been up to this week? So I'm going to start with the TV that I've been watching this week. So I've been talking to you guys about the Clone Wars, I think, over the last few episodes, and particularly Craig, I've been bending your ear on it, saying you need to watch it because there's some fantastic kind of story filler in there where it fills in the background around things like Order 66 and what happens to Ahsoka and things between that and Mandalorian. And I finished that and that was really good. So I then started watching Star Wars The Rebels. And I tried a couple of times in the past to watch that, particularly when it was quite new. And I hadn't really gelled with it. I didn't really get the Star Wars buzz. And then I saw a little clip floating around on YouTube of Obi-Wan Kenobi fighting somebody that I don't want to spoil. Actually, I'm not going to spoil it. And I was like, oh, I remember that. That looks badass. I need to watch that. And then I sort of did a little bit of research and turned out it was in the Rebels. So I was like, right, I'm just going to mainline the Rebels. There's 4 seasons of it. I've done it in about 2 weeks. And you know what? First season again, starts okay. There's some background filler on the characters, not amazing. Has a couple of good episodes. Season 2 picks up. You have a few more good episodes with some bloat in the middle. Season 3 and 4, though, are really good, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. They have... Do you know what? They've got one of the best bad guys I've come across. He's called Gran Admiral Thrall. Or
Thrawn. Yeah, Thrawn. Thrawn, isn't it? Yeah,
Thrawn, I think it is. Yeah, and he's blue with bright red eyes. I mean, he looks like a bad guy. Like, you'd see him in a dark or light alley, but like, I do not want to mess with that dude. And then you realize he's an absolute badass when you see him sparring with effectively like upgraded dark troopers. And you're just like, yeah, that guy's a badass. Like, he should be some kind of Sith Lord. Fortunately, he's not. So there's no spoilers in there, but he's awesome. And yes, then there's some really cool stuff that sort of, particularly in the later seasons, that set, it's kind of like episode 6 in and around like the rebel rising of the rebellion in there, and you see a lot more of Counselor Organa. Senator Organa. Yeah, you see some more stuff about that and his interaction with the rebels and stuff like that, and the Rebel Alliance, and like sending funds over there and things like that, and giving them ships and stuff. And it's quite interesting again how he supports the rebels. I'm going to assume that's not a surprise to anyone because the statute of limitations on episode 6 is well and truly up by this point.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, you're probably just not a Star Wars fan and don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. Again, the last couple of seasons really find their feet and they're really good. The last episode is a fantastic closure of season 4, so I can recommend it to you, Craig, because it doesn't leave it on a cliffhanger.
Oh, mate, I'd see that's the thing, right? Just to kind of fill you in the conversation we've been having, Ratley, around the Clone Wars is, I feel bad because I'm a Star Wars fan, but the Clone Wars I really, really struggle with. And I try at different points to get into it, and I find it so incredibly boring. It's like watching a serialized version of the Clone Wars, like episode 2, the boring parts of it. It just, I really struggle to get into it. And we keep trying to find spots for me to jump in, don't we, Phil? Where you say, these are a little bit boring at the start, but it gets better here. And I think we may have cracked it. I need to start maybe about halfway through season 3 or 4, I think it was.
Season 4. The bit where you sort of start seeing the background of Darth Maul, and it leads in nicely to why you see him at the end of the Solo movie. I'm not going to say any more.
I was going to say that I can understand where you're coming from, but I kind of feel like it'll just hit better if you watch all of it. And I know that you're struggling with it, but I think you might just need to grit your teeth, get through it, and go. Do you know what? There are great episodes in there, and it's not the best Star Wars, because but it's not bad Star Wars. It's just. The trouble, I think the biggest problem with it is there's so much Star Wars and you've got so much choice that why would you watch the not as great Star Wars when you could just watch the good Star Wars? Do you know what I mean? Whether it be you watch The Bad Bunch or you watch, Rebels, or you just watch one of the movies. I think that's the issue of it is you've got options, so many options. That why would you? Why wouldn't you just dive into some good stuff?
I've watched The Bad Batch, or I'm watching The Bad Batch with the kids, and that is brilliant. I'm really into that. It's fantastic stuff.
Well, there's a lot of lore for that.
Do you know
which is what Phil said.
Clone Wars at the end,
getting towards the end of Clone Wars, the last couple of seasons, is very much like watching The Bad Batch, and I'm trying to get to that point where it becomes more like that and less.
Do you know what? I'll tell you what I think this is. The conversation we briefly had, Craig, is that, when you get a series, a TV show, and it's like 24 episodes long, and realistically, of the 24 episodes, 10 to 12 of the episodes are really good key story, and the rest is almost like sort of bloated filler. And that's what you're getting with like seasons 1 to 4 of the Clone Wars. It's like there's the really good story stuff they want to put in is sort of meted out in the season, and then the other stuff is the filler to give them enough episodes to pad it out. And what you find is as you go further through, they figured out that basically people just don't want the filler. So like, for example, The Mandalorian, almost every episode is brilliant, but it's only like 10 episodes. Now, if that had been a TV series made 10 years ago, that would have been 24 episodes. And the same 10 episodes that are brilliant would have been in there, and it had been some absolute bloat in the middle that you'd be like, oh, this is tripe. And I think maybe it's just that realization that there is so much content out there now that they're making stuff smaller and they're just hitting you with the good stuff.
I think it's also really rare you see a show that can maintain that kind of quality for like the majority of its episodes. And I always harken on to Battlestar because Battlestar's a really good example of being the majority of it being very, 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 very good. I'm not going to say it's all brilliant. There are a couple of I mean, it's all great. Yeah,
particularly in the middle, they lose their way.
There's some bits where it kind of goes, oh, it's a little bit wobbly here. Like, and the problem with Battlestar isn't that the episodes are bad; it's that the episodes aren't as good as other episodes of Battlestar. And when your bar is that high, it'd be like The Mandalorian. If The Mandalorian had subpar episodes, they immediately stand out because the rest of it's so good. And that's the problem with Battlestar has. So, and I think The Mandalorian is a great example where, like you say, Phil, by keeping it like
shorter, concise, they're just
telling what they need to tell. They've helped that series so much by doing that. We get, we can get more invested in the characters we need to get invested in. We don't get this overbloat of people just running in and out all the time. It's great. And I think, like you say, I think there's maybe a way to do that with the Clone Wars, but I do think there's a lot of good in the Clone Wars. You just got to kind of dig for it is the problem.
It's definitely later on though. Like,
it improves.
The you could skip the first 3 seasons, right, and start on season 4, and you
I don't know if
wouldn't
you could
miss.
entirely skip it. It's well, all right. Okay, you
There's
could.
definitely,
but I think
some
you'd be doing it a
episodes you should
disservice.
watch, but you would.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
you'd be
definitely
doing
some
a
episodes you
disservice to
should
skip all of
watch,
it.
but you could watch it from season 4, and you'd probably still get the same enjoyment. You particularly would, Craig.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of recommendation.
You can do what you want, Craig. You can do what you want, really,
Yeah.
can't you?
You can just ignore it and not watch it, and you don't have to listen to anything that
Yeah.
we've said.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about a couple of games I played this week as well. I was only going to talk about one, but then I remembered I actually started playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Because I was really trying to find, I couldn't find something I wanted to play, and I was really struggling. I was like, I'll go back and play this. And I remembered I'd never finished that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to jump back in. And that was the game that NVIDIA demoed ray tracing with. Like all the years ago when they first announced the RTX cards, they did that scene when you're in this
Market.
it's like it's a market scene, and there's like neon lights, and there's a disco, and there's people dancing, and it was amazing, and all the soft shadows and bits on there. I was like, I wonder what kind of upgrades they've done for the Series X. I'm saddened to report they haven't done a ray tracing update for it, which I thought they would. But Xbox have worked their magic with the FPS boost. So you can now have the quality graphics mode and 60 frames per second. I'll tell you what, that game looks like it came out this year. That game
It's a pretty
is
game.
absolutely
It's a really pretty game.
It's amazing, like the detail in her face and her expressions. I'll tell you what, it's got a banging photo mode as well. There's like poses and facial expressions and filters. It's like the one they put in Mass Effect as well. Mental. But yeah, do you know what? The gameplay, it still holds up. It's got some really cool kind of stealth bits in there. And because it's the third one, if you haven't played it, she is absolutely brutal. I mean, she has no qualms stabbing somebody in the face with a pickaxe. Just
Proper
takes them
Lara
out.
Croft.
It's,
So I think I did about 3 hours of that game. I don't know if I must have had it on a trial or something, or
Yeah, they did
No.
a trial.
it was on Game Pass for a little while. And I
okay.
played a bit, and then I put it down and went back to pick it up again, and it had gone. So I never got to finish it. And I keep looking to see when it comes on sale.
For the pair of you, I would recommend you both play it on PC because you both have RTX graphics cards, and on PC you should be able to pick that up for under a tenner now. I mean, it's 3 years old and it's Square Enix. They just discount the arse out of everything once they've sold what they think they can.
I'll tell you how much it is if you want.
I bet it is dirty cheap for a game of that kind of quality.
Imagine, the Tomb Raider games always get the. I think that's been. I never picked up Shadow because I started to play Rise and never finished it. Even though I loved the first one, I thought the first one was like one of the best games I played of the previous generation.
Rise was even better. They really did a good job with Rise of the
I
Tomb
really
Raider.
enjoyed what I played of it, but it's just one of those things that I don't know why I never got more through it. It's brilliant, and again, don't get me wrong. Like it's not. I think it's just like one of those things where, like you said, I put it down for some reason, and I just never got around to going back to it. But I've got it. I own it, so I can play it whenever I want. But
It's the same
I
thing
have
for
to
me.
say,
I played 10, 15 hours into it, put it down, probably at the same time Craig did, to play something else that came out that was multiplayer, and then I only just thought about picking it back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, highly recommend dropping in on that, particularly if you have an RTX card, if you're on Xbox
Cool.
Series X.
You're not going to
it's got-
believe this, Phil. You're not going to believe this, but on Steam for the definitive edition, it is actually like 30 quid. It's 30 quid on Steam. Can you
I mean, in
believe
fairness,
it?
there was a Steam sale about 2 weeks ago. So
I was going to
it's probably
say,
like
it's
5
the
quid on
one
that.
week where it's full price in between the rest of the time where it's on sale.
Yeah. It's like a DFS sale, that one, for Square Enix
Exactly
games.
that, yeah. Exactly. I bet you if I load up on good old games or something, it'll be there for like 5p or something.
Yeah.
It'll be like-
Probably, yeah.
It'll go free on Epic at some point in the near future.
5p.
Yeah.
I remember buying a game. I can't remember what it was for 17p once, and I was like, you know what? For 17 pence, I will give this a go. And it was like, whatever. And I can't remember what it was, but I was like, yeah, that'll do. Yeah, it's one of those stupid Steam sales. I was like, 17p, yep, done.
I mean, let's be honest, at 17 pence, you've got your money's worth if it boots up and looks all right, even if you don't play it.
If you look on CD Keys, you can still pick up Assassin's Creed Unity for 99p. They must have so many copies of that game. I remember buying a game on CD Keys about 2 years ago and them going, congratulations, here's your free copy of Assassin's
Yes.
Creed Unity. And I go,
That's
I
exactly
don't
what
want that, I've already
happened
got
to me.
it.
That's exactly what happened. I remember discussing this with Sherman because we were game sharing at the time. I was like, I want to buy this Need for Speed game, but if we buy it, we get Assassin's Creed Unity for free.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, go on then. Because it was only like 12 quid for the Need for Speed game I wanted.
Yeah, I think I gave it to my nephew, I think, in the end. Sorry, Phil. Anyway, carry on, mate.
That's all good. And the last game, I have dipped back into Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So a good friend of mine and Craig's, who shall be known as Combat Cam, because that's his PlayStation tab with a K, yeah. Because let's not go down that route about the case. But yeah, basically, he was well into it. He loves his milsim stuff. And me and Craig were like, yeah, we could go for that. So we went in on super hardcore mode, like turned off the HUD, put the enemy difficulty in extreme, like you've only got one weapon. We've gone with proper insertions, like drop in at a like one of the bivouacs, and then we were going to like hoof it there about 2 kilometers to the point. Cam was getting up on the ridge with his sniper rifle. Me and Craig were getting in close. And do you know what? It was hard, but it was really good fun. And then we had some awesome moments where Cam was providing like fire support from the ridge and like taking out drones for us and stuff. It was brilliant fun. And they have done such a good job turning what was an absolute crapshoot of a game into something that is genuinely an enjoyable experience. Like you turn off the gear score, that fixes a lot of the problems, but they've now added like the AI teammates in. Do you know, I was actually reading there is another update for the AI teammates due at the end of this year. I think it was either October or November time. They're dropping a 4.0 update on the teammates. There's going to be more teammates. They're going to have more skills. You're going to be able to, they're adding an even bigger skill tree purely for the teammates to customize how they play as well. One of the things I'm hoping is there'll be an option where you can then force the teammates to trigger their special abilities. So like Fury has this really cool, like, because she's a sniper, you can throw in like an intel grenade basically that scans all the enemies for you and they come up in red and you can see them through the walls and stuff. And when you're playing on hardcore mode, that is brilliant. It's like the best skill. Get in there, tag them up, use the team, sort of take them out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
one of the little skills that they added in that just as a game changer for me was the ability to be able to throw a bullet casing to distract enemies. It's such a simple thing, but when you're playing a game, you're trying to stealthily sneak into a base at night under the cover of a thunderstorm. You know, you're all dressed in black balaclavas, and you can just go bing, 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 and they're like, huh? And they'd go and take them from behind. Quality, love it.
Yeah, Craig went on a murderous rampage, stabbing anyone who followed his bullet casings. And he just giggled down the microphone. He was loving it. So yeah, you know, that is my week in a sense. You know, again, Breakpoint, it's one of those things. It is dirty cheap again to buy. I mean, I think on PlayStation it's 15 quid, on Xbox it's probably about 12 quid, and on PC I imagine good old games will have it for like 17 pence or something. You know, it did not sell well.
The gold standard of games is it 17p or below.
Yeah.
If it is, you can buy it.
But you know, that game, and you know what, they added some stuff with like the Darkest Night as well, because the night shine was always too bright. They've done so many changes to that game in terms of after game support.
They basically undid all the problems they made from Wildlands. I mean, Wildlands was no means perfect, but like, talk about square peg round hole. That whole gear score nonsense. Like, we talked about this before. Like, as a big Division fan, I just looked at it and went, "I've got the Division. Why do I need this? Why do I want this? What the hell? I want Wildlands to be the more tactical, the more realistic."
Yeah.
You know,
you want that drop in and out. Like, I don't want to have to grind to go and play it. I want to go in there, mil spec style. You know, I want to sneak my way in. I want fire support. I want drones, and you know, and then I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to come back in a week's time, and I'm going to pick up where I left off.
Yeah, and as much as like you might want to limit equipment in the early stages to give the story some cohesion or whatever, that's fine. But don't, you know, like one of the good things about Wildlands played was you got to choose how to unlock certain things and how you spec'd up, because you would go find things relevant to what you needed.
Yeah. And
it was you know, about informing the way you played, but you still had to build your character. You didn't just like instantly become uber powerful. The same, and then it just didn't make any sense, that change. We've talked about it loads though, so there's no point banging that flogging that dead horse. It really was just the stupidest choice there, wasn't it? So what they've done is unmess up their game. Yeah. Which, credit to Ubisoft, at least they have. They didn't just abandon it like most
stuck with it.
Like they usually
stuck
do,
with it.
And I think, you know, I would now recommend that game to anybody. I'm quite happy to recommend it because they've done a lot of work. I really enjoyed my time playing it.
Sweet. Lovely job. Well, thank you very much. I'll take it that's the end there. You finished. It was done.
It was zoop done. I believe it's over to you. Other than
Yeah,
Breakpoint.
Mr. Craig, what have you been doing?
What have I been doing? Well, what have I been doing indeed? No, I've been pretty busy, with sort of work stuff, and I picked up a new car and all that kind of stuff, so I've had a lot going on. But I have a few things I've managed to dip into. I've not been doing a huge amount of gaming. I have, however, picked up the DLC for a game that I know you love, Mr. Ratley, which is a Streets of Rage 4.
Ooh, I didn't even know there was DLC till you said it the other day, and I was like, I need to check that out. At some point.
Mate, it's yeah. So I'm pretty impressed with it so far. It's not like it's not got kind of extra story or anything. Not that you could really say Streets of Rage has story, but it's got this really great simulation mode, which is like a survival. So you can see it on the screen here, where effectively you've got these new characters as well. You can jump into an area up to 4-player co-op again, and you have one life. And you fight through a bunch of enemies, and then it will give you an option for a different power-up at the end, whether that be extra damage resistance, or when you do a special attack, it deals fire damage, or it can be various different things, and you carry that through, and you have to get as far as you can, so as many rounds as possible.
There's a swordfish weapon. Sorry. Just for that.
I was impressed by the swordfish.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can play as the lady cop that you could see there, who is pretty awesome. You can play as Max, the wrestler from Streets of Rage 2, and you can also play as Shiva, who is the kind of kung fu master type guy. He's one of the bosses on sort of, I think, maybe the 3rd, 4th level. So they're really, really cool to play with, and still loads more sort of unlocks to do, and that loads more weapons, and it's like £5. So it's fantastic. And I mean, for me, I picked the game up on Game Pass, so I didn't even pay for the game as well. So I was more than happy to spend what was basically some of my reward points on that DLC. Get it downloaded, Ratley. We'll have to have a blast on that. And
I'll have a look at it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well worth doing. So other than that, I've just... I've been watching Loki, so I don't know. I know, Chris, you're pretty burnt out on Marvel stuff. You've not touched into that, have you?
I will watch it, but I'm not in any rush to watch it. It's a bit like that. That comes under the same one as the previous series. I can't remember the name of now, which is
WandaVision.
WandaVision, yeah. I still want to watch that, but I'm not in any rush to watch it. I'm not in any rush to watch the movie, so therefore, it's like these things.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Have you seen it, Phil? Have you got right to the end?
So I have got one episode left to go. I was actually watching it earlier today, but it was so fresh. I hadn't finished it. I didn't want to talk about it tonight, but I will talk about it because you've brought the subject.
Yeah. It's.
What?
Go on.
I was going to say, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the storytelling in Loki. It's so good. It's so engaging, and it's so different from other Marvel. It's done another WandaVision, hasn't it? It's something so completely out of the blue, and I really enjoyed it. I loved all the different Lokis. I like the fact they don't look the same. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. I was like, it'd just be like Tom Hiddleston playing like 20 roles, and then they're all different. I particularly love.
Well, careful what you're going to say though, because obviously it is a bit of a spoiler for people who haven't watched it.
Yeah.
So just yeah.
Well, I've kind of read it, but basically, old guy Loki.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. I like it is the introduction of the multiverse. We had a touch of that, didn't we, in WandaVision? But this has gone full bore. This is effectively, again, this isn't spoilers, but this is, we all know what it's about, Loki. It's all this different stuff from the trailers. But this is the beginning and the setup of the rest of the phases of the movies. They're all hinging on what's happened out of Loki. And this isn't a spoiler, but there is a season 2 of Loki coming as well, which is the first time they've done that on one of their Marvel series, which is really cool. And I think, it's the perfect one to do it on, because they can just do so much with it. But if you haven't watched it, it's definitely worth getting stuck in. It is, I think, my favourite of the 3 they've done for Marvel so far. I don't know what you think, Phil.
It's another great example of a really short, concise TV series. It's only 6 episodes, but every episode is absolute gold. There's no bloat or filler in there at all. And it's just another example, like, WandaVision again was 8 episodes, really short, concise, bit of a weird start, I'll be honest with you. But
the thing which I've heard from all of this, like in terms of for people who have watched it, is they just set out to tell a story. It's almost like they just took a movie and went, right, split it up into episodes instead of going like, we need to make a 12 episode series and filling it out. And I've always said I just wish more people would focus on telling the story they want to tell, and it's whatever length it is. So whether it be a 1 hour and 20 minute film, or whether it be a 4 hour movie like Justice League was, there's rumor between all of that, but the story is the story, and it has its length. I mean, you could have trimmed Justice League down, we've already said this, but there is a point where you just need to go, right, this is the story, this is its length, and if we take it shorter, we disservice it by cutting too much out, and if we take it longer, we disservice it by just filling it full of nonsense that doesn't need to be there. And that's the way that I will say this for Marvel. At least they are fairly aware of how long their films are, because that's how long the stories are.
Yeah.
I wish we could say the same for certain other superhero movies that are run by some other stupid company that doesn't understand what it's got. But what do I know? So credit to Marvel. They just set out to tell stories, and that's. I mean, I think that's also a lot of Disney's influence. Disney are very good at pacing their films. Always have been, and I think that's definitely that length of storytelling in movies has really helped Marvel in that respect by having that Disney oversight and going, look, they have to be as long as they have to be almost. Well, it's weird that I say that, but they've really dropped the ball with Star Wars movies in terms of longing them out or keeping them too short. With the last three, to be fair. I mean, the only one that really worked for me was the first one of the three.
Yeah,
The Force Awakens was great. I think The Return of Skywalker was okay, but that was in a weird situation where it felt too long for the story we were trying to tell, but it felt like there was a story they needed to tell that wasn't in it, so it needed to be longer. But it's almost like Disney lost a bottle to make it longer and put all that stuff in there, so it got kind of just a bit of a mess. I don't know.
It just ended up being like 9 ended up basically being damage control for 8, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like all the stuff
100%,
they didn't,
100%.
all the stuff they should have put in 8 had to be squashed into 9, and that's why, like, ridiculous as it is, what they need is like a 9.5 or something.
Yeah, because 8 also took too long to get where it wanted to go. It paced really badly. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into 8 because 8's a very, very, very toxic area, and you can get really messed up. Needless to say, I'll just say I wasn't a fan, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I think in that I can recall with Disney movies where I can really say that the pacing felt off and the story came secondary to like. Almost like the story became second to we need to make it like Empire and like have the big switcheroo or the unexpected thing happen. They got too caught up in that and not focusing on the story they were trying to tell, which is I think the only time I can say that Disney, to be fair, because Disney usually are really laser focused on making a great film that will just fill cinemas again and again and again.
Hopefully with Dave Filoni kind of moving into that position that kind of Kevin Feige feels for Marvel, we'll start to see that coherence come in with Star Wars.
I mean, if he brings that laser focus the Mandalorian's got to the movies, we're laughing, right? So let's just hope that we get more of the Mandalorian, that quality. Because
Filoni did a lot of the Clone Wars stuff as well, didn't he? Towards the end, and the Rebels as well.
Well, he wasn't he in charge of like the universe coherency and like the rules essentially, wasn't he? Yeah. So he's the man we need in charge at the end of the day. So
I can imagine him going up to Feige and saying, I imagine it's really, really difficult to kind of get this coherency and get this really great coherent storytelling. And I can imagine Feige saying, no, not at all, barely an inconvenience. Anyway, there's a little
barely an inconvenience.
There's a little drop in there for people who know what that is.
Love it. Doing YouTube crossovers now.
And finally, I just wanted to touch on one little thing that I watched this afternoon with the boys. They were dead keen to watch it. And although I think I've said on previous episodes I wasn't overly happy with the expensive rental systems we're doing, where things, from the cinema, I kind of thought to myself, right, there's 4 of us watching it, it's 20 quid, it's a £5 each, and so I went ahead and did it and picked up the rental copy of Black Widow. So, have you boys seen Black Widow yet?
No.
Okay, right. Well, I mean, obviously I won't do any spoilers at all.
To be fair, you shouldn't do any spoilers anyway. It's like literally come out this
No,
week.
of course, yeah. No, of course, yeah. But, okay, all I'll say, right, am I glad I spent 20 quid on it? No.
That's a ringing endorsement if ever I've heard one.
Yeah, it's like, it feels like there's certain points in it. It starts off really good. I was watching it going, I'm watching a Bourne movie with a female lead. That's basically what I'm watching at the moment. And it was a really good start. gets into the middle, completely loses its way, and the end is just like, what is going on? It just completely, after about a third of the way through the movie, it just completely goes haywire for me. A real missed opportunity because it has some great people in there and some great characters as well. Things like Taskmaster, massively underutilized. What a great villain character. And yeah, it's just like, they're just going, who can we throw in there? Oh, we'll chuck Taskmaster in. So it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie either. It's one of Marvel's poorer entries, I would say. But having said that, Marvel's poorer entries are still quite a bit better than a lot of films that come out. So, yeah, I'd maybe wait until it's not 20 quid to rent.
I'd heard the ending is a big disappointment for a lot of people. Like a lot of people said, the ending just not only is it a mess, but there's apparently like whoever the bad guy is, because I don't know. Apparently, it kind of just like happens, and you just kind of go, "Oh, well, that was a thing then." And it's like,
I tell you what, Chris
like,
said. Chris said to me, she turns around because obviously there's a post-credit sequence. There's always a post-credit sequence, and that happened. She went, well, that post-credit sequence was more interesting than the rest of the film. Yeah, that's a bit harsh, but you're probably right, actually.
I think my reluctance with it is not that I didn't want to see a Black Widow movie. I was pumped for a Black Widow movie, but 10 years ago, you know, or 5 years ago, I don't, you know, this feels like they've got to that point with Black Widow where they've killed her off in the main, you know, spoiler alert, in the main saga, and then they've kind of gone, people like Black Widow, maybe we should make a movie with Black Widow, and then kind of just kind of rolled a movie together instead of focusing on making that a great movie. I don't know, it just, from the minute I heard about it, I was like, it just felt like not a bad idea per se, but kind of bad timing for an idea almost. It was like, it felt like a cash in. And
they should have put it in the right place in the timeline. You know, it's, I mean, again, this isn't a spoiler. You know, it's only, it's in sort of around the Civil War time, you know, just after Captain America Civil War. If they'd have done the film then, you know, but a great place to put it. But yeah, it was just, I know what you mean, feels shoehorned in to just kind of go,
and I think it's kind of my feeling with the Marvel Universe, like especially with Loki, WandaVision. I know that they've gone somewhere with it, but they just felt like, oh, you know, we'll kill them off here and then bring them back here to sell some more tickets or some more toys or whatever, you know. And you know, because as much as I just praise Disney, one thing you can never Disney is like, what do we want to do? We want to make money. We want to sell things and make money. Find me a way to do it. Which character haven't we flogged enough dolls of? Make a movie of them. Do it now. You know?
Money. Yeah, totally.
And if they don't sell enough dolls, they're going to sell you the 3D print for it, Chris. So they're still making money.
No chance stuff. Disney will ever sell a 3D print file, mate. Not a hope in hell Disney will ever do that.
No, I don't think so. Cool, great. Right, well, thank you guys for filling us in what you've been up to. Time to move over to the news. So this week we're going to start off with quite a big chunk of news coming out, and that is chonka. That is the Steam Deck that has been announced by Valve. So it was announced through the IGN first, through their IGN website, and it's a new handheld PC stroke games console stroke Switch alike that's due out in December. So it's quite. I mean, whenever a console stroke new piece of tech comes out, it's always interesting, and exciting, and it always gets people talking. So I kind of wanted to go through the specs and then pose a bit of a question to you guys, if you don't mind. So, and I guess the specs are kind of to let everyone at home know as well, really. So it's got a custom AMD APU based on the Zen 2 and RDNA 2 architecture. Kind of glad Alan isn't here right now because he would be falling asleep. It's got a 4-core, 8-thread CPU and a GPU running 8 compute units. It's got a CPU running between 2.4 and 3.5 gigahertz and roughly 1.6 teraflops from the GPU. So it kind of puts it kind of Xbox One, PS4, you know, teraflop wise. It's got 16 gig of low power DDR5 RAM, which is, you know, real fast RAM. 7-inch 1280 by 800 display. 64. There's a 64 gig version which just has a standard kind of MMC solid state storage card in it, which is £349. I think it's $399 in dollars. They then do an upgraded version at 256 gig, which is an NVMe drive, so it will be much faster in terms of its loading, and that's at $459. And then they do the 512 gig NVMe model at $569. So a bit of a price jump there, but obviously you're going to get that improved performance from it. So I think we'd obviously, when this first came out, we sent the information out on our little WhatsApp group, and Ratster posed the infamous, ever-known question of, who is it for? And I think it's a great way to kind of start from it, really. And I wanted to go straight to you, Mr. Ratley, and kind of let's just what are your thoughts on it? What do you think? Because it's now you've had a bit of time to digest it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a really impressive piece of technology. Let's just start there. Like, it's really amazing that we're now getting to that point where, they were very, very, very specific in the video talking about this. Is like, this is a handheld PC. This isn't like anything else. This is a PC. You can do what you want with it. It's got all the relevant, ports, etc. It's a PC. You can run all your peripherals off of it. It plugs into monitors, does all that stuff. You can download different OSs. You can do this, that, and the other. It's a PC, And I was like, it's a really impressive piece of tech. Like, I like the look of it. It's a little big, but that's to be kind of expected when you're dealing with this kind of tech. I think that it's one of these things where, like, I just keep looking at it going, it's really impressive, but I just don't see any kind of use for it at all. I've got a really high power laptop, and I cannot figure how having a Switch as well and my Series X and my laptop, where it fits into my game flow at all. So if I want to game, I'm probably not going to play Doom Eternal on a train, as horrible as that sounds to the thing, because I think there'd be a real bad
case
of
on your
motion
Switch anyway, can't you?
But yeah, but I'm talking like proper Doom Eternal, not Switch Doom Eternal where they've like kind of gimped it hard. I mean, to be fair though, that's impressive. They got Doom Eternal running on the Switch. To be fair to id, I mean that is really impressive. As a piece of tech, I'm really impressed with it. I just can't see a use case for it for myself, and everybody I know has said the exact same thing of like, wow, that's super impressive, but I just don't see a point where it would be of any real use to me. The only person who's raised a question about something that could be used for it is if it can run VR well, you could basically like stick it on your back and have a wire to your VR headset, and that's a VR machine. And I was like, that's a really cool idea, having like a pouch on your back, have a walk-in VR machine that frees up the VR a lot. I hate the lowest spec machine, not because I don't think it's going to be capable, but I think it's one of these things where not only is it an MMC drive, not an NVMe drive, but the screen on it is a lower quality because it hasn't got the glare resistance and scratch resistance, which is
you're right. Sorry, I missed that.
Rubbish. I hate it. I absolutely hate it when companies do this. They offer you a cheaper model, but like gimp the hell out of it so that it isn't worth having. They're essentially like, don't give me a model which is like where I'm compromising on so much stuff that it isn't worth buying. If your entry point is the 256 NVMe drive, which it really is, let's face it, make it that's the entry point. You only made it 350 and cut the arse out of the specs and bottomed it out just so you could compete with Switch. And I don't think this is a Switch competitor. It looks like a Switch, sure, but the Switch is a Nintendo console, and Nintendo consoles are going to sell because look at the minute, it's still the best-selling console at the moment, and yes, it's got better supply than the others, but it's selling because it's a Switch, not because it's the most powerful. And if you're going after Switch customers with power, you're going after the wrong crew, because people aren't buying Switches because they're powerful. That's the bottom line. I really like it. I just can't see a use case for it. But I love that it exists. I want to be really clear about it. I really love because the potential this opens up for where gaming can go is massive, and I love that. But I just don't think this is quite it.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that point you said about the kind of that entry level price, that low price point. And I mean, it's kind of what Xbox did with the Series S in a way. They took the drive at it, they chopped it down a little bit. It doesn't have the full resolution and stuff, so it's got that entry point to a market. And the customer that comes into my mind immediately is my son, Josh.
Yep.
So he was sat with me when I was watching. He was like, wow, Dad, so you can use it as a proper PC and I can use it like I use my Switch. I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, can I sell my Switch and then maybe get one of them for Christmas? And he was so pumped about it because he's always wanted a PC like his brother. And he's getting to that age where maybe he might need one. And it is, effectively, you get a USB-C dock, it is just a basic low-powered PC. You can put Windows on it if you want and stuff like that. And it's kind of, and I get what you're saying, is that there's the smaller storage and, the lower quality screen.
It's smaller, it's inferior as well. And the screen is massively inferior. And I think it's just...
But for Josh, someone like Josh, he's not good, and I think they're not targeting you or me with that basis, because we look at that and go, yeah, and there's no way I'm getting a 64 gig mod. I'm gonna put one game on it. What? Like, I need to get a big, and stuff like that.
But I also think that's a really, like, for him, that's a poor experience. I don't think it's fair to tempt him in with an inferior device just because you want to sell more units. You know, I don't see that as a fair business model to your consumers. Yes, absolutely, people want to buy it, and I'm not going to say they won't. But I don't think it is a fair thing to do to your customers to massively gimp your system and sell it as if it's the same thing.
Yeah,
because Microsoft don't sell the Series S as the same thing as the Series X. They're very clear that it's a lower powered system, and you are getting a 1080p machine or a 1440p machine instead of the 4K machine. They've been very clear about that. Valve aren't doing that. Valve is saying, hey, it's the same thing but cheaper, and that's not what the case at all. We know that. It's very similar.
I think that's jumping to a conclusion a bit initially, because it's barely been announced. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but they should have been very clear about the big differences.
Yeah, initially when the Series S was announced, it was going to be a 1440p. I don't think a 1440p, but as now it's come out, it's not. It's 1080p and
it'll probably.
So
I think
change.
I've got a funny feeling with a lot of the resolution we're talking about with the modern consoles, and it might even be some of the stuff in this. Is DLSS has a lot to play with that, or when we get that super version, we'll see resolution increases, because that's the super resolution for AMD actually got shown off recently, and apparently it's got massive resolution gains. Over previous ones, but it's not quite as crisp as DLSS. But anyway,
my point isn't the actual kind of performance of it. It's the way that it's sold. And I get it. I mean, maybe I'm being harsh, but I don't think it was a very. I think it was a bit underhand to that. That just screams of cutting the backside out your product to make it a price point, because you can't get it to the price point you want. And I don't think that's the way you should do it. That would be like selling a Series X cheaper and cutting it down, going, oh no, it's just honestly, it's a Series X. It's the exact same thing. Which it isn't. Sorry, Phil, you were trying to say.
Yeah, sorry, Phil.
You kind of covered it, but I was going to say I agree with Ratley on the cheaper price point. Because I mean, they advertise that 64 gig. I can guarantee there's not 64 gig on that card free. That 64 gig will have at least 30 of it taken up by the operating system.
Apparently, that's super lightweight. Apparently, that is
Linux,
super lightweight.
Yeah, it is Linux.
Super lightweight.
Okay, so it's going to be more like 7 to 10 gig then. But even so, you're not going to get 64 gig to install a game. And there are games out there that are bigger than 64 gig now. Because the thing with PC games is they don't tend to have that option to install lower resolution textures. Like you can with something like, Modern Warfare, you can obviously install and uninstall like campaign bits to reduce the size on the consoles. But PC games, it's kind of a one and done thing. It's all or nothing.
Well, Doom Eternal 66 gig.
Yeah. Again, that 64 gig model, I don't really know what they were thinking. And let's be honest, like, how much more would it have cost them to put a 128 gig NVMe drive in it? At their production point, probably not a lot. They could have done that and added 50 quid to the price, and it would still be a reasonable competitor to the Switch if that's what they're trying to do. Again, I still agree with Ratley. It's, the people who own Switches buy a Switch because it's Nintendo and because there's Nintendo games. And we all know how much I hate Nintendo's business practice. Because I don't like their Switch or any of their consoles, but I do like their games. And it sucks that I'll never get to play them because I refuse to buy their hardware, because I just think they just cheap out deliberately. That 64 gig, that is a Nintendo console right there. Is a Nintendo console, but it won't sell to it. Won't
Can I
sell
say
to
something? You touched this. Like, I think if you talk about the pricing, just having it compete directly price-wise with a Switch, it doesn't need to. This isn't a Switch. I think at $459 for the 256 gig, which is where you really should be looking, that is immense value right there at $459. Yes, I know it makes it more expensive than a Switch, and the uneducated people will still buy Switches because they think it's the same thing. But the people who are going to buy this know exactly what it is. They don't think it's a Switch. They know it's a portable PC that plays PC games, etc., etc., etc. So I don't think that shooting for the same price was as important as Valve think it was. I think, selling it as a better, more powerful gaming machine that is capable of doing modern AAA gaming properly on the move with all these extra benefits as well was the way to go about it, personally. I mean, that's just my take. I mean, I genuinely think that 64 gig is a bad idea.
Yeah, the other thing is, I mean, the 459 with the 256 NVMe, actually, that is probably going to outperform the equivalent gaming laptop for that kind of money, because you can't buy a gaming laptop for that money. It's just it's like a workflow PC at that kind of point. It's designed for like kids doing homework and things at 459. You won't see something with a proper dedicated gaming GPU and at that price point. So actually, again, that 349, it seems a pointless bit of kit to me because I mean, any lap 2x349 isn't.
I mean, I get your point about young
So-
kids, but I do think it's that thing of like it makes young kids like spend money on something which is going to give them less life in it, essentially. And I do think that's a bit underhand.
Also,
No,
how much more?
I completely disagree with that. But yeah, it's just coming from my perspective, and I think, it all depends. So you've got different consoles or different products for different points in the market. Again, you or I would not go for the 349 64 gig model unless I said to myself, actually, maybe I commute on the train every day, and I love playing things like Hades and sort of retro games and stuff like that take next to no space up. Actually, for 349 quid, I don't really need it, but it's a nice little extra gadget I can have in my backpack to whip out and just play a few little games on. But then if I was going, this is going to be my gaming PC, if you like, and have it as more of a centralized gaming thing that I'm going to play things like Doom Eternal on and stuff, obviously I'm going to push up to that higher price range. And I've been listening to or viewing a few comments on a Facebook group I'm part of. And actually, some quite interesting things. People out there saying, I've never been a PC gamer. I'm not interested in PC gaming. But actually, at that, I could play a few of those little titles that I'm missing. It's not too expensive. It's quite cool. I can have it as a little thing. So I think that's maybe the angle they're going for, not as the super hardcore like us. Personally.
Yeah, I still think it's. I mean, I get the point, and I think my point is not that it's a bad. It's a great marketing tool, and it's a clever marketing tool. Do I think it's the right thing to do by customers? Hell no. That's my point. I think you use your son as an example, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea for him to buy it. But if you said he wanted to use it as a PC like his brother, and he's going to be disappointed when it doesn't do the things his brother's PC does. Whereas if you went up a model, it's going to be very, very similar.
He's got my old PC, so it's probably better.
Yeah.
There's another thing. I just googled this quickly. So it does have a built-in SD card reader. Yeah,
it does have.
So how
which
much
you can
more...
run games from.
So here we go. So you're going to buy a decent size, 512 gig SSD card. It's going to cost you like 50, 60 quid easy for a decent class 10 plus one. Well, suddenly the difference between the 256 and the 64 gig is then only another £40 for a better screen and the NVMe drive, which will run infinitely better. And then you get the better screen with the anti-glare and stuff. That 64 gig, it's like, do you remember they did that 4 gig Xbox 360? Back in the day.
Exactly what it's like, mate.
Right.
Exactly
and you could install 2 games, and then basically you were buying extra storage. You had to buy extra storage for it to be a usable console.
Again,
it's the same thing
much
there.
like the Series S. Ryan's got a Series S, and it's a 512 gig system.
380, don't you?
Yeah, 380. And actually, when he plays things like Call of Duty and Red Dead Redemption, it's nearly all gone straight away.
Yeah.
So again, I had to buy additional storage for it. Again, it's an entry point. It's an entry point.
I can see your point, but I
difference
think there you're talking about putting two of the biggest games on there. With the 64 model, without expanding the storage, you can't even get Doom Eternal on there. Forget Call of Duty. Call of Duty, you're in a dream world, So it is a different thing, and I think it's my problem with it is that it is just priced. It's priced to look good as opposed to actually being good. And that's my problem. Is that I think the 459 is still priced exceptionally well.
Oh yeah,
and it represents incredible value. I just don't. They've tried to kick the legs out of the Switch, which I don't think is going to work as well as I think it will, because the Switch is the Switch, and the Switch has all the wind.
It has Nintendo games. It has Nintendo games. That's
no matter what anybody
Switch
says. The Switch is nice because you get Nintendo games, and then you get the bonus of being able to play other games as well, which is like a first for Nintendo consoles. This isn't going to turn people off the Switch, because I'll also be willing to bet there's a massive difference in battery performance between the portable PC and the Nintendo Switch.
Probably.
I think I'd read somewhere it was about 2 hours on the battery.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not viable. This is
just
not my
just
point.
over 2 hours or something.
Yeah, I hadn't looked into it, but I promise. I was thinking to myself, I bet you the battery life on that is garbage.
Yeah.
And because it's just got to be, because you run a game system that hard playing those games. Think about how hot the Series X gets, or my laptop. Like you struggle to have this on your lap when you're playing something like Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like if I put Doom Eternal on it, it's like I'm going to put it on a table now because I like the skin on my lap. I like it to stay on my thighs. So it is this thing of like I just don't think they're in the same fight they think they are. They think they can take on the Switch, and I think there's going to be people who buy it and then get very disappointed when they compare it to a Switch because it doesn't have the battery life, it doesn't have the real portability. Because, all right, it's small for a PC, but it's massive compared to a Switch. When the guy's holding it at one point, it's like this. I'm just like, yeah, that's a big machine.
Just
Again,
reference.
it's super
Sorry.
impressive, but it's a big machine.
I did check. Sorry, it was between 2 and 8 hours. So 2's the minimum you'll get, which let's be honest,
suppose
if
that's
it's
different, yeah.
any, when you look at a laptop and it says up to 8 hours battery life, and when you're actually using it, it's
4
2 to
hours.
3 hours.
Yeah,
4 if you're
4
lucky,
hours
yeah.
if you push. Yeah.
Let's be honest, if they're saying 2 to 8, 2 is more than likely where you're at, and that
If
is
you're playing
8
anything
hours.
modern AAA,
Yeah,
Yeah.
8 hours is basically the screen on with it turned to minimum brightness, not touching any buttons.
yeah, playing Hades where it's just on the title screen. Yeah, so but
So at
like,
which
this is
point you might as
No.
well you're going to be plugging it into an AC outlet anyway.
It's
So
exactly. Think about this, like,
It's not portable.
the power in we know something like ray tracing, for example, which it's capable of, which I just like to be very clear is well impressive that this machine can do ray tracing. Like, just think, I'm going to turn control on with the ray tracing. I've started it 5 minutes in, plug in. Hold on, I'm on the train. I don't have a plug nearby. I think this is I think this is, and there's a lot of portable PCs out there, and I think that it's in a world at the minute where this is a glimpse of the future, a product that looks fantastic that isn't quite there yet. And I think in 5 to 10 years, these will be super exciting. I think there's some really cool stuff. Like I saw one thread on Twitter, and it was basically like, so this is basically Valve just made Microsoft's portable Xbox for them. Because you could just sideload Windows, put Game Pass on it, and just load all the Xbox games on there. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Or even better, you can just literally put a compatible browser on and just play xCloud on it. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point, to be fair. I was like, so I say I'm very excited by the technology. I have zero use for it. I think people who have it will have a lot of fun with it. I think this is a brave new world for PC gaming. I think it's going to open up PC gaming to a lot of people, which is great. But I can't see for a lot of people where it's going to fit in their flow. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who think it's a good idea to change from a Switch to something like this. And I think it might bite them in the backside a little bit. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying do a lot of homework on it. Maybe let it get out in the wild and see what it's actually about before you start buying it. Because I've got a funny feeling there's going to be a lot of "it's great, but" comments. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
I really like it.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me. A really exciting, interesting product. I wouldn't buy one. I don't think I'd have no need for it. I have a gaming PC. I have an Xbox. I very rarely leave the house these days, so when would I get a chance to play something out and about? Now, yourself, Phil, do you think that's something that would tickle your fancy?
No, but I've got to be honest with you. I am a gamer, but I am not a mobile gamer. Like the longest extent of mobile gaming for me will be Sudoku on my smartphone, or one of those like sort of puzzle games. Like I love the problem-solving puzzle games.
While you're on the can.
That is exactly it, mate.
I'm
working out and about. I'm in a Tesco's. I'm in there for the long haul. I'm getting out my flow, free flow, joining up the coloured dots. 7x7 grid 8x8.
Do you know?
Excuse me, sir. We close at midnight.
Sure, I've got a streak going on here. I would say one of the best mobile gaming experience I've ever had was way back in the day when smartphones started becoming before iPhones, for anything like that. I had a Sony Ericsson P910i, which was one of the first touchscreen phones that had a stylus. And I will never forget putting Scum VM on that and realizing I could play The Secret of Monkey Island on my phone. And I used to work in Norwich at the time and I had to get the train in. So I'd be sitting on the train playing Monkey Island while listening to my music. It was hands down the best mobile gaming experience I've ever had. And nothing's ever come close to it since then. Phil just reminded me like that. It's like Scum VM, like on a mobile phone, playing Monkey Island, heaven, absolute heaven. And forget that's proper gaming.
Yeah, cool. So I don't think I need to ask you, Ratley. Certainly not something you're looking to pick up.
I say super excited by the technology. I have zero need for it. It's more that I already have a Switch. I'm certainly not going to flog my Switch to buy this when I'm going to lose access to all the Nintendo games. Which like Mario Kart was one of my main reasons for buying a Switch. I'm not going to lie. I love Mario Kart. Mario Kart. I mean, I'm bad at it, but I love it.
Me too. Yeah. Maybe we should play.
Like, the worst bit is Brad. You know Brad. He goes, I'm really bad at it. I'm like, Brad, you're a million times better than anyone else I know. You might be bad at it compared to your mate who's a god, but compared to me, you're like next level. But I absolutely love the game, and I wouldn't sacrifice those exclusives to buy this when I could just play the PC stuff on my laptop I have no need for it. It's just it's a swing and a miss, but an exciting window to the future for me.
I want to drop one more comment in there because I just was doing a bit of a Google research, hence my lack of focus there for a minute. So the iPad Pro, the one that was launched in 2018, had the same graphical power and GPU as an Xbox One X, as a One S, sorry. So that's 1.6, 1.7 teraflops. So an iPad from 2018 performs as well as this Steam Deck does from 2021.
Yeah.
I think, again, these days, just taking teraflops as a number doesn't quite work out.
This is the thing, isn't it? Yeah, I watched the very... So
are we going to get that kind of performance on an iPad and probably an Android tablet?
Let's be very clear about something. iPads can have all the graphics power they want, but the reality is they have no games to play on it. Like, well, not they don't.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if Apple can do that, I'm pretty sure Samsung can do it on a tablet as well.
I think the thing here, and I think this is like Craig said, is very clear, and I watched a video on this, is whilst it is a very low teraflop count, this is RDNA 2 stuff. So in reality, it's a much more powerful system than the numbers give it credit for, because just people aren't counting for RDNA 2 and like having all of the stuff that it does, because it's got the full suite like the Series X does. It's got variable rate shading, it's got the ray tracing stuff, it's got all the stuff it can do to make it more lightweight. And so when we see engines coming along like Unreal Engine 5, which will take more advantage of these new hardware features, we'll see games perform significantly better on this than I think a lot of people think it will.
Yeah, maybe. I think
it's not the best machine I've ever seen, but I think it's solid.
Yeah, I think maybe there might be some people out there like you who are sort of a little bit feeling a little bit frazzled by the way they've gone about their marketing, and maybe they should have delayed their message out a little bit, because there's certainly been a lot of delays recently, hasn't there, Mr. Ratley?
But we covered this before, and delays aren't necessarily a bad thing. No. Isn't there that great Hideo Kojima quote which says, "A delayed game still has the potential to be good, but a rushed game will forever be bad"? Isn't that it? Something like that?
Yeah, I don't think that was Kojima, but yeah.
Yeah, someone someone said it. I think I forget who it was, but someone said it. And sadly, Warhammer Dark Tide, which was a Xbox exclusive for this year.
I think it was Miyamoto. Sorry. Anyway, carry on.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes, you're right. It was Miyamoto. Yes, you're right. Warhammer Dark Tide has sadly passed into the list of games that will be delayed for this year into 2022. So as I said in our little WhatsApp chat, breaking news, 2021 has officially been delayed into 2022 because of COVID. Because not after this, we had a few other announcements come along. So Rainbow Six Extraction being one, and there was one other that got delayed as well. I think it was a PlayStation one. I can't remember which one it was now, got delayed as well. So, sad times. But again, we've covered this numerous times.
Riders Republic, that was the other one.
Yes. Yep. Well, no, Ubisoft, wasn't it? Yeah, Riders Republic. Sorry, you're right. Much rather these games were delayed and we got a finished, polished article than they just rush it out the door to make a deadline and we get an unfinished mess of a game, because it's hurt games that I was seriously looking forward to. I know we had early days of the podcast, huge long talks about the Cyberpunk thing, because we had such varying degrees of gameplay, and I don't think any game should be that variable that one person can pass a mission with next to no faults, and the next person has like 12 different game-breaking bugs in the same mission. So I'd much rather, and I'm sure we all agree on this, and we can pretty much breeze through this news article, that these games are delayed because we get a polished game and we get a game that's worth playing, as opposed to they rush it out to make a deadline and then have to patch it 6 months down the line, where we then all lost interest in the game and no one's playing it. And on that note, that just reminds me, because Outriders has been significantly patched in the last few weeks. Really? The community that's still playing it has had nothing but good things to say about the patches they've done. It's made the game more fun. The loot is dropping more readily. Everything you'd want it to do. In fact, Paul Tassi wrote an article saying it's pulled a reverse Anthem. And I think it sounds brilliant. But I've got no one to play it with. Yeah. Like everyone's moved on from it. That buzz that was there, where we had the momentum and everyone was logging on to play Outriders, is gone. Yeah. So I mean, we could probably get it going again if we really, really try. But this is the point. If you launch like that, your window of opportunity to blow everyone away and get everyone get your hooks into them and drag them in and want them to come back is there. If you drop that ball at that launch, you're going to have that issue where essentially they just don't want to come back, or they're just skeptical to come back.
It was some pretty major major ball dropping as well with that game, wasn't it? You know, things like I was starting to really enjoy a particular character, then just got wiped and stuck and so I couldn't play it again, and there was the login issues and then there was the loot issues, and they tried their hardest.
I had issues with Cyberpunk, and it was like, you know, you had a much better experience with Cyberpunk than I did, whereas mine was just like every mission I was like, oh seriously, another progress blocker, I've got to restart the mission, I just can't be dealing with this anymore. You had the characters. Admittedly, I was further down than you with characters. If I'd have lost a character in Outriders, I think I'd have been like, yeah, done with it, see you later. I'll uninstall it, never go back, you know. So I totally get it, and I think this just brings that point nicely. Finish the game, get it working, test it, make sure that it does work as you expect it to, then release it. And I'm happy they're delayed, but it does make me sad because I was really looking forward to getting that chainsawed out and chopping up some orcs and stuff in Darktide. So, you know,
I mean, let's be honest.
Alan was really looking forward to Riders Republic. I know that you said it in our E3 show. You know, and I was looking forward to Rainbow Six. So it's a shame, but again, for the right reasons. You were going to say, Phil? Sorry.
I was going to say, I can still hear Alan wailing in disappointment when you posted that in there. I was like, no!
Yeah.
And then he was on his knees, hammering the floor in misery. I'll be honest, I'm kind of like with you. The thing is, right, if you release that game early and it's broken, you lose the buzz. And you know what? Even when it gets delayed, people get upset and they complain online. But let's be honest, you know, if it comes out 6 months later and it's a really good game, all of that negativity about you delaying it just disappears. It's like it never happened. So it's so important. I think it's more important now than it ever has been, because of that ability to patch things afterwards, that people are now starting to realize that that's not what they want. We want the game to come out. We want it to work. You know, if you're releasing something that early and it's got bugs in it and you know they're bugs, you need to tell people it's an alpha or a beta. You can't sell it as a full price product or as an update product. It should be sold and labeled as an alpha or a beta.
Yeah,
100%.
Things are getting delayed more and more often, aren't they? And people are starting to not have a problem with it so much. I think people are just going, "Oh yeah, it's delayed again."
Like you say that. What was the last big delay? Was the God of War delay, wasn't it? And didn't Alana Pierce receive death threats and all sorts of really nasty stuff in her DMs?
Oh really?
Purely because she happened to work at she started work at
Sony Santa Monica.
Sony Santa Monica. She's not even working on God of War. And people started sending her death threats because she works there, blaming her for it, saying it's all your fault. You joined, they've delayed it. Blah, blah. It's like, we need to get past this as well. Like people just need to, you know what? People just need to do one. We've seen exactly how toxic people are for I think for other stuff, and we just need to be like moving on. But
she kind of gets the whole pretty gamer girl thing as well, though. So that's a lot of hate. That was just another excuse to give us some.
Do you know what? That just on that quickly. Why are people so angry when a pretty girl likes to play video games? It's like, what is the problem here? It's like, oh my god, she's attractive. She can't possibly like nerd stuff. What? It's like, people are mental, like legit mental.
There are lunatics all the way across the planet. There are lunatics not just in video games and lots of other stuff. But you know, the lunatics who put this stuff up on video games, I can see like streaming services like Netflix and stuff like that doing movies and series about these lunatics.
Yeah, there'll totally be a Netflix documentary on it at some point, won't there?
It'll be like that one where they were hunting down the guy that used to vacuum bag cats or whatever it was.
Exactly, the same sort of thing.
It'd be nothing like that. I was just saying, the thing is, someone like her, though, she's worked in the video game industry for, 15 years?
Yeah, she's well respected.
She is a legitimate video games journalist. She has the backup. It's not like she's some streamer girl who's jumped in a hot tub and put a video game on and linked up to Twitch. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, but on the note of Netflix, Phil.
Yes,
there is a bit of news on the horizon, isn't there, my friend?
There is a bit of news. So Netflix, I'm gonna provide this with a nice, hard-hitting headline. Netflix identified a threat to their attention for leisure time. Okay. Do you like that?
Bum bum bum.
The biggest name in video this as a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. The biggest name in TV streaming has identified a threat to their business. All joking aside, that's legitimately, I quote that from the article I read actually. Basically, Netflix have decided that video gaming is potentially one of their biggest threats to what they call their leisure time audience. So, you know, we all have varying amounts of leisure time. Craig gets about 2 hours in the evening because he works ridiculously hard and has 2 kids, and it's his own fault, really. Should have kept it in his pants.
Yeah.
Me and Ratley have significantly more leisure time.
Mate, I've got so much leisure time at the minute. I don't know what to do with it all.
And obviously, for companies like Netflix, it's all about making them that place to go to spend your leisure time. So yeah, they obviously things like books and newspapers and playing on your phone are all parts of it, but they basically identified that gaming is the kind of biggest hook for it. They cite Fortnite because it's still basically the biggest game in the world at the moment, as a real key kind of example, I suppose. So Netflix are going to add a gaming service. Oh yeah, they are going to invest the monies, and they have a lot of monies to invest. I think it's really interesting. You've got things like Xbox Game Pass, which is a subscription service. You get lots of games. From the reading of this article, they've hired some big wigs, some big names in the industry, particularly Mike Verdu, who was an EA exec back in the day. He then moved over to Facebook, and he sort of championed or headed up the department that worked with Oculus. And basically, he was the liaison between the game studios developing games that they wanted to go on VR platforms and getting the games kind of implemented on Oculus and working with the teams there. So, he has a lot of experience in terms of working with gaming studios. And by the sounds of it, Netflix's kind of first port of call is they're going to start trying to get some third-party games over onto their future gaming service, and then they'll do what Netflix always do, a bit like they did. They start getting the programs on there, and then they'll probably start investing their own money. And I'm sure at some point we're going to see a Netflix games studio.
Well, they're a bit of a behemoth.
They are. I mean, that is the kind of future that's been painted by this article, and I think it's really interesting. And I think, another competitor in the video game market, that can't be a bad thing. Not with that much money.
Yeah, and I think somewhere like Netflix, they've already got their server setups, haven't they? They've already invested in all that kind of infrastructure and the way that they work. That surely that's kind of like the first step on the way there. So I suppose I wonder what happens. Do they end up pairing up with a Microsoft or a Sony or someone like that, or do they put PCs in? Oh, have you heard something?
Funny you should say that, because somebody data mined Netflix, and they found indications of a potential team up with one of the big two game console manufacturers. And it weren't the boys in green, it was the boys in blue.
Really?
Yeah, there's apparently some data mining. It's not it's nothing confirmed, and it's just some tenuous links. It looks like there might be some PS Classics coming to the service. And then of course everyone's then gone PS Now, and it's like, I just don't see it happening, but it might do. It'd be a really good shot for Sony to fire back at Game Pass, to put PS Now into Netflix. All I'll say is, like, Netflix want to be careful they don't tread on Microsoft's toes too hard, because they're only worth 20 billion. And Microsoft might just go 20 billion. You say, we'll have you.
Yeah.
Hold on, where's my wallet?
Yeah, because let's face it, everyone thought it was exuberant when they spent that 7.5 whatever it was on ZeniMax, and they went, here's our quarterly report, made that back and more. And it's like, so everyone was like, oh my god, 7.5 billion. They were like, yeah, whatever, mate, pocket change. So
what was that? You popping down the shop? Should you grab us a drink and a Bethesda, please? Cheers, mate.
No, I want Netflix this time. No, I had the Bethesda. That was rubbish. I wanted it's at the back of the behind that. Yeah, you got to shop for it. Yeah.
So what you're saying is Netflix better not be identified by Microsoft as a threat, yeah? To their leisure time.
Yeah, forget their leisure time. It's like, you better be a threat to our whatever it is. You're in trouble, mate. We're Microsoft. Here's some money. You want to know what money's like? This is what money's like.
Just seems like Bruce Wayne, isn't it? It's like, how'd you get the house back? I bought the bank. It's like that.
Exactly that. It is just like, it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. We're Netflix. It's like, we're Microsoft. I'm just messing. There's obviously no indication they're planning to do this, but like I say, I just thought it'd be funny. But it's a smart move, isn't it? Smart move. This.
Smart move by Netflix. It's a very smart move by Sony if something comes out of that, because they do need a competitor. And like you said, I really hope there isn't a dartboard up in a Microsoft office somewhere where they just throw darts and buy whatever it is. Because I imagine Netflix
it's a big wheel. Yeah. Like Wheel of Fortune, spin it. Today we're buying.
Can I have an N, please, Bob?
Sure, that'll be 20 billion. And it's
Yeah. Quality. Well, on a slight tangent, but on the same subject, right? So, do you remember the whole xCloud thing with iOS?
yes.
So, iOS wouldn't allow them to have an app with game streaming on, would they?
Yep.
Does that mean?
No, I thought it was purchases. I thought it was they wouldn't allow them to have an app with in-app
Yep.
purchases that
In-app
Apple
purchases.
didn't get a cut of.
Yes.
That was the
Okay.
issue.
Right. Okay. So if Netflix if Netflix does something and has games on their service, they're effectively not going to be having any microtransactions in it, or they won't be having an app on iOS, will they? Unless they have it as a separate app and it becomes a web app. Or does that then become the thing? Because there's so many users of something like Netflix, and it's such a big thing that people use iPads and stuff for. Is that the thing that makes Apple turn around and change their policy? What do you think?
Well, I think this is just going to shine an even bigger light on how rubbish and anti-consumer those policies are by
Yeah.
Apple. I mean, I get it. I get you want to cut the cut of that pie, but we all know the story here. They're ripping off developers with their hard work to get this.
Yeah.
And Apple make. It's not like Apple are short of a bob or two. Do you know what I mean? So
Not really,
maybe
no.
this Netflix thing will bring this to the forefront even more so. So gives the Epic suit more power and more, cojones to really stick it to Apple on this one and just say, look, this is massively anti-consumer. This is not the right way to go about it. You need to basically get with the age. You can't just control everything completely. You get enough of a cut over here. You don't need this over here. And I think, that's something which I hope is going to change just in general, but maybe this Netflix thing is the thing to bring it forward. Let's hope something good comes of this regardless. I mean, let's hope that Netflix launch a great gaming service and there's some killer games on it. I'll be down for that. More good games is more good games. Whilst I say I haven't got the time for a PlayStation, if PlayStation Now was more readily available and worked better, essentially, and I'd be well up for running that a bit more and getting better. If there was an Xbox Game Pass equivalent for PlayStation, I'd be all over that as an option. I just can't justify the expense of a PlayStation and then the games on top when I've got so much on the Xbox and my PC. It just doesn't work out for me.
Yeah.
But if
Plus,
they did a streaming service, if they did a proper streaming service, I'd be well up for that. Because I would be able to play God of
PlayStation
War or
are-
what have you.
PlayStation are starting to gradually, slowly but surely, realise the benefits of pushing their games across to PC anyway. So
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
don't want to play them on day one, you're going to be playing them eventually anyway.
Well, yeah. Again, I'm not overly fussed. I'm hoping that one day we get a couple of ones. I mean, I do want to check out Horizon. I keep meaning to do that. I'm waiting for it to go on super cheap sale. Actually, if I'm honest,
I'm pretty sure that was floating around for about 22 quid or something.
Yeah, I'm waiting for 17p.
Might have
mate.
might have been less.
That is
Don't know
his
how to-
point. That's his sweet point. 17 pence.
It's got to be
okay?
17 pence, or I'm not buying it, mate. That's what it is.
You
Oh,
might be
Ratley,
waiting
this is
a while to
15p.
get that.
Ain't 17p, is it?
2p.
And he
Don't
can't buy
care,
it
mate.
twice because
17.
it's 30p. Yeah.
Good stuff. Cool. All right. Well, that's about it for the news stuff this week. So we're on to our talking point now. So there's been a bit of rather strange controversy, and I wanted to kind of put this out to you boys and see what your thoughts are. So Psychonauts 2 and their developers Double Fine, obviously owned by Microsoft, have come out and mentioned that they're putting an invincibility mode into their game. Now, this has stirred up a bit of an old controversy around the web around game difficulties. And I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the subject, really. Do you agree with Double Fine adding this mode in? Do you sit more on the side of games shouldn't tone down the experience for inclusion, or are you kind of somewhere in between? So I wanted to go to you, Mr. Phil, first. What are your thoughts on the whole game difficulty situation?
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say none of us are against game inclusion. No, none of us are against that.
But some people online very much seem to be.
Yeah, well, they'll be against it until for some reason they can't play games as they would do normally,
Yeah,
and then suddenly they'll be on their side of the fence. None of us are against that game inclusion. So, for me, I think there's a limit to where it needs to go to. So, for example, on Psychonauts 2, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the fact they've introduced this invincibility mode. So for my particular point, like the idea of game mechanics is that they teach you something, how to defeat a boss, how to beat this puzzle, how to solve whatever jumping puzzle you're getting across, right? And that you jump and then you die, you don't jump to there, or you don't stand here, or the boss keeps hitting you with the same attack, you know that you need to be over the other side. Whereas, if there's an invincibility node, what's going to happen is, let's say you're in a big fight with a boss and it's firing missiles and rockets, and then you just stand there and just shoot it with your pea shooter, and it takes you half an hour to take it down, but you get there eventually. And I don't agree with that kind of approach, but I certainly do agree with the inclusion side of it. So a lot of games now have introduced, for example, a kind of story mode, rather than, it's not even easy mode, it's like story mode, where the enemies are very low powered, they're very low health, and they do very little damage to you. So you're still required to play through the game in the intended way, but it's just significantly easier without, you're required to put so much time and effort, and, especially for games where you have to level up, for example. We always complain about the bloat in the middle of Assassin's Creed. With a story mode, you're not going to be stuck with the bloat, for example.
So right, just on that point then, just kind of like, so let's say Psychonauts 2 comes out. We and you both play it. You play it on hard and complete it, and I play it on invincible mode and complete it. How does my experience affect your experience?
Oh, it doesn't affect my experience.
But
doesn't bother
that's,
me at all.
But yeah.
But
That's what I'm trying to get from it.
I would have to suggest that your experience would be lesser than mine. But I know that seems...
if I don't like something to be hard, and I just want to go through and experience this story, that's my choice.
Yeah, but you might miss key points of how that would play out. If you make it too easy, there might be a certain mechanic that weakens a boss, for example, where you need to do that, and it's tied into a specific part of the story. I don't know. Let's say you have to go and collect orbs or something, and you have to put them in a machine, and the machine shoots a laser that takes down the boss's shield or something like that. But and then you can do loads of damage to it. But your experience of that would be you just stand there and you shoot.
Hold on. No, his experience is exactly the same, because he hasn't had to bypass that mechanic to anything. He's just been invincible while doing it.
That's what I'm saying. Let's say it does bypass that mechanic, though.
But that's not what he's talking about. He's just saying it's playing in invincible mode. So that's I think that's the big thing here is like, and I'm not saying I'm saying I probably would agree with you that he doesn't need to take away things but it would open up that game to be accessible to people who haven't got all the time we have to play it, and maybe people who can't necessarily manage it.
Yeah, but let's say that you can still damage the boss, but you just do less damage because you're not following that particular mechanic. This is a big thing with RPGs and MMOs, for example.
Well, it's the same mechanic.
No, but it's not, because let's say if you're invincible, you're not worried about getting damaged. You don't have to do that mechanic. You can just stand there and shoot it.
Yeah, but if you're ninja good, you can just shoot it down anyway. So it's just the same experience, just played differently.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it would take you significantly longer to do it, yeah? So what I'm saying is, if it causes Craig to sit there for half an hour shooting at it, whereas I would complete it in 15 minutes by following that, but it's because he's in invincible mode, he didn't read any of the bits, he didn't learn that mechanic because he didn't know. You're saying,
my point is that it makes it more accessible and quicker for some people who might struggle with it to do it difficultly. They're not going to take the longer route because they're invincible. They're going to play the game in the same mechanics because it's the shortest route to victory. They just don't have to stress about dying doing it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you start putting that into a lot of games, you will find that there will be people who don't necessarily then learn the mechanic because they don't need to, because it doesn't affect their game to play, and then they will have a lesser experience.
But that's their choice.
It's not but that's what I'm saying, though. But it's their choice to do it. But maybe they don't know because they're not putting that time into it. They're not learning that mechanic. They're not getting involved in the game. So but it's a lesser experience for them.
So let's put this out here then.
That's their experience, though. It doesn't matter to you what their experience is.
So let's put this out here. So the game developer is putting this invincibility mode in. So the people who designed and create the game, so they are building the game from the ground up with these things in mind. Let's say from day dot, they're like, I'm going to have an invincibility mode in this. So it's going to say, I'm standing there and I'm invincible, and I need to put an orb in there and do a laser attack, whatever you said. And if I'm just standing there shooting it, it's going to pop up and say, you can't do it this way. You've got to go and put a thing in there and do it. Like, oh, okay, cool. And it's a game that is a universal game that's suitable for. I mean, I don't know with Psychonauts. It looks fairly child friendly.
Yeah, they're very kid friendly. There's that beauty of slightly adult humor if you know it, but it's not like
sort of Simpsons or Pixar like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it could be a 5-year-old playing it who just wants to run around and jump about.
Likes the colourful graphics.
Yeah. But so I think a lot of the arguments online are saying, there's people saying, oh, well, people use it to beat the game quicker, or they'll just skip encounters by putting it on invincible mode. And it's
That's fine. I don't, again, that's where it rolls into your decision of your experience with the game. I'm just saying, like, I don't disagree with what they're doing. If they want to put it in there, if the game is tailored for that experience, it's fine. What I'm saying is I don't want them to put something in that lessens the experience for that person. Like, it shouldn't be at the expense of the game. That may not well be the case. If they've designed it from the day dot and it does that, that's great. And like you said, it's your choice of how to play it. What I'm saying is, though, if that happens, then they suddenly start maybe backdating these invincible modes into other games, and then it starts to create a lesser experience in that game. You don't get the full experience. That's when I think it isn't a good thing to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, potentially if they're moving something back in. I mean, but from the flip side of it, for me, let's take Dark Souls for an example. Yeah, I really enjoyed that game. I really did enjoy that game. It is a very hard game, and I got to a point where I gave up because it was a lesser experience for me because I couldn't do it. If it had had an easier difficulty, I would have got to get through that, see the rest of the game, enjoyed the whole game, and seen the end of it. But as a point, I had no way of adjusting it, and I was like, I ain't got time for this. Other stuff I want to play. I give up, and I've done that on 2 different Dark Souls games because I'm just not very good.
That's kind of the opposite. I suppose it's going the other way, isn't it? Where putting that in the game mode would actually give you a better experience.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
I don't disagree with that.
This is going to be my point as well. Is there are so many games where either I've quit on it because it's just a great example would be what was the shooting version of Dark Souls that was out a while back? Can't remember.
Remnant
from the ashes, from the ashes.
Oh.
And I started playing that, and you were online with me when I hit the boss. I was enjoying that no end until I hit the first boss fight, and then it became me dying ad infinitum. And I couldn't. And it was a huge difficulty spike, and it was like, and it took a game I was having a blast with and made it instantly unplayable for me. Had there been a way to downscale that, I'd have been like, all right, I'll drop the difficulty and have a go. And proof of that is that I wasn't really enjoying Star Wars Fallen Order. I've been struggling with it. Everyone's been telling me how great it is. I've just been having a bit of a pig with it. And I was playing it on normal difficulty, not harder difficulty, normal difficulty. And I just wasn't having fun with it. It's got too much timing thing. I just want to get my lightsaber out and,
swish wash.
And yeah, exactly. And there's still lots of timing mechanics and things in there for other stuff, the puzzles, etc. But I don't want the combat to be a chore, and the combat was a chore in Fallen Order for me. So I went back and I switched to story mode, and I'm having an absolute blast with it now. And I was hating that game.
So this leads me to my point from earlier. Then, so if they would you want an invincibility mode in Fallen Order, or was the fact
I wouldn't
that
care, I'm playing it for the story.
Okay, but the story mode. But the story mode, now you're playing it, is that not sufficient?
But it's sufficient for me. But that doesn't mean that everyone is me and everyone has my want to even bother with it that much. Some people, and let's just go one step further. We're talking about accessibility. Accessibility doesn't. We're all very lucky. We will have complete use of all of our bodily limbs and fingers and that. Admittedly, my fingers are and thumbs are getting a little worn out. I think I'm getting some arthritis problems coming in because of some other conditions I've got. So it's already in the back of my mind. But I play regularly. I've talked about this on the podcast before with Luke, and Luke has significant problems using his hands, or they just don't work. And we laugh and joke about his flippers and stuff. It's nothing. It's a very in joke between me and him. But if he hadn't had someone make him a controller to be able to play things, he wouldn't be able to play it. Now he's be able to persevere and play some things, but there is some stuff which is just going to be too difficult for him because of the way he has to move about to push buttons. So if you talk about a Dark Souls, I'm fairly sure. I mean, I know it's not really Luke's game, and I'm sure Luke could, if he really applied himself, could play it. But I'm just not sure necessarily he'd want to give it that much time. And why should he have to just drill himself into the ground to be able to enjoy a game? I don't get the point in it.
I did say
that's the thing here. So the invincibility mode isn't aimed at me or you, and then putting it in there doesn't affect me or you or Craig or Alan or Joe Blogs or anyone on the internet who doesn't want to use it. But
probably 99% of people.
If a 5-year-old or someone with problems with their hands, maybe delayed reactions, maybe a disabled gamer wants to play on invincibility mode because they want to experience the Psychonaut story and the humor and the fun of the game, then if they put an invincibility mode in Dark Souls and someone who had a physical handicap could then play Dark Souls and enjoy it and work the timings out so they had more time, they didn't get constantly punished, then hell yes, I'm all for it in Dark Souls, because it's not adjusting the experience for someone who chooses not to use it, and you still have to learn the mechanics, but you don't get so brutally punished for it. And let's face it, Dark Souls is a brutally punishing game, which puts most people off. Because what stops me playing Dark Souls is not that I die and then have to. It's the level of you die and it takes you so far back and you have to do all that again. For me, that's the turn off. I'm just like, you know what? I can't.
As I said,
keep rehashing.
I'm not.
But
I'm not
that's
against
the argument here. The argument.
I'm
is,
not against inclusion. You know, if it's for
I know you're
people
not.
who have disabilities,
but
I'm all for it. I don't want people to not be able to have an experience.
But that's.
I'm gonna.
It's you said earlier about the point of if he stands there and just wail on it. That could just be someone who doesn't have the reflexes to it and just wants to mash a button. There's nothing wrong with that if they're having fun. And I don't understand why there being an invincibility mode and it bypassing a mechanic is so vitally important to that person's fun. If they're enjoying just mashing a button and watching the guy die over 30 minutes and they have a good time doing it, it doesn't matter a flying whatchamacallit, whether that is there and could potentially allow someone to bypass it. If they're having fun doing it, leave them alone to have fun. It doesn't matter. Games are about fun. They're not this. They're just, let's be honest, they're not a dick measuring contest to say, oh, I beat Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare in 35 minutes flat. Yeah, blah, 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 because I'm a god. I have the utmost respect for people that do that. But
Yeah,
that
Bradley was
doesn't
just
mean they
dropping
had
my
more
stat
fun.
there, by the way.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they've had more fun than somebody who's put it on the easiest difficulty and played hard just to beat it on. That's been really difficult for them just to beat it. It doesn't invalidate I see speedrunners on the original Doom who are god on Nightmare going through it like these speedruns. I used to just go IDKFA, IDDQD, I just have all the guns on knee deep in there to be like, have it, BFG, and it was a blast. It was still funny because games are for fun. They are not about. Yeah, I mean, there is an inherent challenge, and some people revel in that challenge. And if that's how you get your fun, great. But don't say this person can't do that, therefore they should be denied fun. It absolutely does my head in, like that you want to control someone else's fun because you think it's their way to play.
You've gone quite on there, Rats. I did just say it's not against inclusion, and you've just literally gone there and said no.
I don't think he's purely directing that straight at you, Phil. More at the saying what's
it's
being
more at the
said.
people on the internet. There are so many people who seem to think that by including a mode where you make someone invincible, it will somehow detract from their experience. It's like it's an option. You turn it on. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. It's just that simple.
Right, come on then, Phil. Let's let Phil retort.
No.
Yeah.
Like I said, I still agree with the point. Inclusion. I'm all about inclusion. And you know what? I take your point. Actually, I didn't necessarily think about it. If it's somebody who has a disability and they just can't play the game, and that's what they need to be able to play their game. Actually, you know what? I think that's a great thing.
Do you know what, Phil?
I guess I just not.
I don't want to be that thing, but I would never have thought of it until I met Luke and was playing games with Luke.
I got really
and it changed my perspective on it.
I just didn't think that far down the line. To me, I'm thinking about it right. I don't think it's a good thing if it impacts the experience of the game. But actually, you know what? If it then gives somebody who couldn't have that experience the opportunity for it, I understand that.
And that's the thing. I think.
So from that perspective, I 100% agree with you.
And I think that's the thing with this invincibility mode. It's not designed to be an easy mode. It's designed as an accessibility mode. And I think that's where people need to realize this. It is not about changing the game to make it easier for everyone. It's about making the game available to everyone at whatever skill level you happen to be or for whatever ability level you happen to be, because you might have a crippling problem with your hands. You might not be able to use your hands. There's so many things. I saw it, but having said that, I've seen some amazing human beings. And there's a guy who I can't remember what the name of, a streamer who used to stream PUBG, and he played it with his mouth on the special controller that was made for him. And I only saw him because Shroud once was pointed his direction and donated to his stream. And this guy plays PUBG and wins chicken dinners with his mouth. I can't win a chicken dinner with a controller. That I'm not saying that disabilities make you unable to play games at a high level. That's completely not the case. But there are some people who will struggle because of their disability, and it should just be an option for them. And an option is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Making someone play it on invincible mode is stupid. Like making all Dark Souls games so you can't die completely defeats the purpose of Dark Souls games if you're capable of playing them properly. But giving someone the option to do that if they can't enjoy it the other way is a great thing.
I mean, something else
that's what we need to look at.
Something else that occurs to me is obviously we focus heavily on the invincibility mode they've added in, but actually maybe that's just one example of what they could do with games. You know, it might be. So, for example, I am quite badly colorblind, like particularly red green.
There's
is
loads
a
of
nightmare.
colorblind modes.
Yeah,
Loads of colorblind modes.
that's the thing. Like for me, so many games have a colorblind mode in there, which does help. Genuinely, there'd be more than a few times I've shot people that are on my team.
Yes, yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, and you know, when we play with Jules, sometimes when he goes away, I just put him down for the sake of it because it saves the rest of us the misery. You referenced PUBG in particular. He disappeared off to go and get his Chinese takeaway. We waited for him. I shot him in the back of the head so we could carry on.
Yeah,
he deserved it, in my opinion.
he did.
but you know, that's interesting.
So,
like,
you know, I think maybe.
Yeah, sorry, mate. You were going to say sorry.
As I say, like, you know, I mean, I guess we've harped on about the invincibility a lot, and maybe that is just a very small fragment of what they can do.
Yeah.
And maybe it needs to be more about the timing, and it needs to be more about, you know, colorblind mode is another example that's been going for a long time. Maybe there's other things they can do as well.
Games are getting so much better with their inclusivity with stuff. I mean, take for example something completely different, but on the same vein. Grounded. I was playing Grounded recently, and they've got an arachnophobia mode in there because
it's a spider off, doesn't it? Yeah.
I do not like spiders. And I mean, they're cartoony spiders, but my God, they are so scary. You turn around and there's a 20-foot wolf spider coming. Mate, it's like you could, if you want. I mean, I've left them on because it heightens the experience for me. But if you're really deathly scared of them, you can have them just as like a blob comes at you.
Yeah, well, it's a paralysing fear for some people. It's a legit paralysing fear, so that would stop them playing the game. So an accessibility mode there is fine.
But
I was going to say the other thing is
tank engine.
But there's another thing
is than that.
Have you seen someone modded Thomas the Tank Engine into Mass Effect 3 instead of Reapers? It's quite hilarious. And
Skyrim as well, classic for Skyrim. That
why not? But obviously, with the advent of things like the adaptive controller, which Luke uses, why can't we see the advent of games which can adapt the game based on the presence of an adaptive controller? They see the adaptive controller and go, maybe this person needs some help with the controls. You know, and Microsoft have been huge in this. I mean, like Microsoft have been leading the charge in accessibility for ages. So it's no surprise that that it's a Microsoft studio that are saying we're going to put an invincibility mode in. Damn the haters. It's great to see, but we've got this hardware there now. We've got software that's smart enough to recognize these things. Surely there's got to be a point in the near future where we go basically, it sees the hardware, it adjusts the game accordingly, or offers you the option to adjust the game accordingly. Because again, going back to the point, whilst I've used Luke as an example, Luke plays the Division 2 with me and other games actually perfectly capable. Like I played for months with Luke before I even knew he was disabled.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe that he had a physical handicap like he did when I saw it, because like, you've got to be pulling my chain. There is no way this dude who I've been playing in the Dark Zone with, PvPing with, is this same guy. And it was, and he's capable and he's perfect. But there are still some things which I know it's not as easy for him to do. And we've discussed it at times. But that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have access to those things. And that's the key thing, is like opening up to people is just a good thing.
Maybe my final point on this is maybe we need to be looking at this as maybe this is the tip of the iceberg then.
100%.
In terms of accessibility, damn whatever impact it has on the game. Maybe this is, I feel like we had this conversation. I have spun around from my initial kind of thought of it.
But I get your point, though, mate. I get your point 100%.
I just think maybe this is, I love what we've discussed here. And I think, if this is the tip of the iceberg and, there's going to add more things around timing and color modes and adaptive modes and, direct support for that adaptive controller that maybe alters how the game plays. I mean, I'm actually quite excited to see what they come up with to make games easier for people, to make them more accessible.
And I think, to be honest, you're going to have out of any of the game publishers and the console developers out there, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Microsoft with the stuff they've been doing, really. I think, well, that was a good talking point. I think it's probably time to move into the twilight of the episode, as we've been rambling on for about an hour and 40 minutes, not even without a quiz. It's been great. We had some great stuff to talk about. So I hope people at home have enjoyed it. I guess all it is really is just say goodbye from me. It's a bye from Ratley.
Play games, have fun, whatever difficulty you play them on. Goodbye, people.
And it's a bye from Mr. Phil.
Bye-bye, people of the internet, and what he said.
See you later.
Love the games, no matter. Bye.
Bye.